Are live. Okay, everybody, welcome. Today's date, August 22nd, 2018, and this is the podcast simply titled, How the Frack We Got Here. I'm Will Buchanan, always your host with the most. I'm about to go over really a whole lot of shit, but pretty much to explain where we are in the current state of affairs as far as political and things of that nature at the moment. Before we get started, we do always have to give the disclaimer that this is an adult podcast, which will be of an adult nature, which means adult language and content will be said and possibly displayed. So if you are very squeamish, have children around, or do not like certain types of linguistic use of wording, now would be the time to get your children out the room, or go ahead and cut this off, or be curious and watch it. I hope you do. So now that we gave that warning, got that out the way, how can we explain this week? Well, really, how do we explain the last 48 hours? Should be the words I want to use, is how in the world do we explain the last 48 hours? Well, if you're Agent Orange, you're probably going to be pissed off right now. But it's interesting to where everybody, well, like I've said before, and I've said it on my Off-Limits podcast, for the simple fact of the matter is just that this was bound to happen. I mean, if you've been paying attention to my Facebook post, and I know I've been posting a lot, and I know I have been posting as far as Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort, because right now I cannot say it with enough sincerity that canaries are singing, and I do mean singing. They're singing more than Cameron did in Paid in Full. That's how much they're singing. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it because that's the best way we can actually go about this. So to basically go right into exactly Paul Manafort. So unless you've been under a rock, you know he's been indicted. So this is pretty much, although he was brought up on 10, but they only agreed on 8, which is amazing to me that a jury had all this information and decided that they could agree on 8, not a 10, but you know, that's the justice system for you. But we're just going to go into this little part about them explaining Paul Manafort as far as him being found guilty.
The 18 counts, the other 10, there has been a mistrial declared. Let me go to Jessica Schneider with this breaking news. Paul Manafort found guilty of 8 counts.
Guilty on 8 of those counts, 10 of those counts sort of wiped away for now, for lack of a better term, because the judge has declared a mistrial. The jury couldn't come to a consensus on those 10 counts. And, you know, I want to explain for viewers here a little bit of the reason for the delay. There are no cameras, there are no phones allowed inside the court at all. So what we're relying on are people who are running from the courtroom down to our people who have computers, and they're able to talk to us via landline and computer. So that's the reason why we're not in there with our cell phones. So yes, the judge has announced that this jury found Paul Manafort guilty on 8 counts, and there has been a mistrial declared in 10. So we're still waiting to get a bit more information here as it comes out. We did hear some cheers outside the courthouse, as Evan mentioned. So not good for the defense on those 8 counts, but, you know, a little bit of a win for them as to the 10 counts that have been declared as a mistrial here. But again, considerable jail time Paul Manafort is facing. Remember, if he had been convicted on all 18 counts, he faced 305 years in prison. A lot of these counts are up to 30 years in prison. So this is by no means a win for Paul Manafort. He has been found guilty on 8 of these counts. Jake?
And let me just take a moment to break down the charges. 8 charges. Manafort was found guilty of 5 tax fraud charges, 1 charge of hiding foreign bank accounts, and 2 counts of bank fraud. These are all felony charges. They're very serious charges. 5 tax fraud charges, 1 charge of hiding foreign bank accounts, and 2 counts of bank fraud. Preet Bharara, if you were the prosecutor, would you just take the W and walk away, or would you try to also prosecute and the charges that were found hung, the 10 other charges?
Yeah, you might. This is so unusual, as I said a couple of times, insofar as there is another case pending against him in the District of Columbia. And I think what I would probably do is tell my folks, let's see why the case turned out the way it turned out in this case, see what the appropriate sentence would be on the charges of which he was convicted, and see how much difference it would make, if any.
Okay, so so if you look at it just right now, so of course Paul Manafort, which they didn't really get into before, which of course they said 8 counts, five of them are felonies. So a little bit of research in this. So right now, each of those charges comes with a mandatory of 10 years. So equivocally, Paul Manafort could be looking at almost the rest of his life behind bars, because taxes always bring people down. I mean, the government couldn't get Al Capone on a murder; they got him on tax evasion. They couldn't get Nixon on half the stuff he pulled; they got him basically on taxes. So, if anything, money does eventually bring down some very powerful people. And I know a lot of you people right now are going, "Well, Agent Orange is still in power. He's already pardoned the racist sheriff Joe Arpaio. He can turn around and pardon Manafort," which is true. But look at the optics of it. If Trump is basically playing get out of jail free card for each of his people, that makes the case against him that much more relevant. But it's funny that, like I said, this has been an interesting 48 hours. So not only did Paul Manafort go down, Michael Cohen, his personal attorney for a little over a decade, also went down. Because it's interesting what he says at this point, and which he does actually admit something very interesting.
They say Mr. Trump's pit bull.
I stood by him shoulder to shoulder.
Mr. Cohen has knowledge on certain subjects that should be of interest to the special counsel, and is more than happy to tell the special counsel all that he knows.
There's an issue that relates to Mr. Trump that is of concern to him. It's of course concern to me. And I will use my legal skills within which to protect Mr. Trump to the best of my ability.
My wife, my daughter, and my son have my first loyalty and always will. I put family and country first.
When it comes time for the financing, which will be, listen,
What financing?
we'll have to pay you. So, no, I got, no.
Shockwaves after President Trump's former attorney Michael Cohen
pleading guilty and implicating the president. Possibly the worst day in Donald Trump's presidency thus far.
Okay, I'm sorry. I swear, I can't make this up, folks. I can't. When you see your campaign manager get brought up on charges of campaign election fraud and is implicating Trump, your personal lawyer is now admitting that you knew about the payments that you've made to porn stars. And he's taking a guilty plea, which, if anybody who has seen enough Law and Order episodes or may have been through a certain court system, you kind of know that if you're taking a guilty plea and in such a high profile case such as this, that means you are singing your ass off to get somebody else. And let's be honest, and I've said this, and keep in mind, I have said this honestly from the beginning of this entire shindig. The moment when we sat there and heard the words President-elect Donald J. Trump, I said it once before, I'll say it again. The Simpsons are freaking, I mean, they're prophets. Well, not just the Simpsons, the creators of the Simpsons are freaking prophets. Because if you follow the Simpsons, and I know for probably guys like myself who still watch the Simpsons, albeit it does need to end, but again, they predicted that Trump wouldn't make it past his first term. And it looks like, and also they predicted Trump would be president. So again, I don't know what it is about The Simpsons, but if they put out a winning lottery number, I am copying down that number and I'm buying a Powerball ticket. Because at this point, they ain't been wrong. I mean, they predicted the Eagles win the Super Bowl. Lo and behold, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. They predict Donald Trump would be president. Agent Orange is president. They predict he would make it past his first term. It comes in threes. But the funny part is about this whole thing is that it is so crazy that two of the most closest allies that he has had have been brought up on charges. And he keeps saying it's a witch hunt. It's this, it's that. And then when his personal lawyer goes down, do not retain the services of Michael Cohen. He was your personal attorney for 13 years. In so many ways, he knows where the bodies are buried. And I don't think it's like, I'm not trying to, relate this to a casino/mafia movie, but anybody who's ever seen the movie, you ever notice that the first people they take out are the lawyers? The lawyers know where the bodies are buried. So now you have your personal lawyer singing up a storm, which is the next scene I'm about to show, but your campaign manager, former campaign manager, I should say, is now implicating you. So now two people now are implicating you as far as you knowing shit, especially in this scene right here, where this actually comes up just today. So today is just full of breaking news. So let me play this clip, and that way you guys will see what Cohen has now said about Trump.
Exclusive tonight, a claim that goes to the truth of what the president knew and when he knew about an event that is central to the special counsel's Russia investigation. Let's get after it. We have CNN political analyst Carl Bernstein and Jim Sciutto, our chief national security correspondent for CNN. Jimmy, what do we know now?
Well, Chris, tonight, sources with knowledge tell myself and Carl that Michael Cohen claims that then candidate Donald Trump knew in advance about the June 2016 meeting in Trump Tower in which Russians were expected to offer his campaign dirt on Hillary Clinton. Crucially, these sources tell us that Cohen is willing to make that assertion to the special counsel, Robert Mueller. Cohen alleges as well that he was present, along with several others, when Trump was informed of the Russians' offer. He was informed by Donald Trump Jr. about that offer. By Cohen's account, Trump approved going ahead with that meeting with the Russians. Now, we should note that our sources said Cohen does not have evidence such as audio recordings to corroborate his claim. A source familiar with Cohen's House testimony said he did not testify that Trump had advanced knowledge. Cohen's claims were not mentioned as well in separate reports issued by both Republicans and Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee.
Now, going back through that transcript, the question before Congress for Cohen is going to be, did they even ask him about it? So now there's a different state of play. Let's bring in Carl here. Timing. Why now?
Because Michael Cohen is going around saying that he has information that shows that the president had foreknowledge of this event, as well as foreknowledge of other things that Cohen now is aware of. And we know that Cohen is, quote, flipping, attempting to flip on the president of the United States. He's also shopping for a get out of jail card. If this information is true and accurate, and if it can be nailed down in testimony by others, it's very, very significant because the president has denied any foreknowledge of this event. And this meeting goes to the question of intent to collude, because indeed his son in that meeting made him said to in a communication that he was willing to get information. I love it, he said, from the Russians at this meeting.
All right. So before we get into the implications too deeply, let's get into the balancing part of this. Jimmy, what are you hearing from the president's side on this?
Okay, so we reached out to a number of people, of course. Alan Futerfasi, of course, the attorney for Donald Trump Jr., he tells CNN the following, and I'm quoting, Donald Trump Jr. has been professional and responsible throughout the Mueller and congressional investigations. We are very confident of the accuracy and reliability of the information that has been provided by Mr. Trump Jr. and on his behalf. I should say that contacted by CNN, one of Cohen's attorneys, that is Lanny Davis, he declined to comment. Of course, Chris, I know you're speaking to Rudy Giuliani, the president's attorney, and I'll leave his response to you.
Okay, so basically, what just came out of the whole thing is, and like I said, Cohen is now pretty much saying, yeah, he knew. And yes, it is him saving his ass because Cohen is just like Manafort. Manafort is looking at least 50 years, which means that he questionably could spend the rest of his life in federal prison. Cohen, on the same hand, could possibly looking at anywhere from 36 to 40 years. But again, might as well be a life sentence. So of course, they're going to sit there and say, hey, I have information, but in turn for that information, what do I get out of it? So of course, they're going to flip. They already began to flip. And it's amazing to me that out of all of this, because before I actually show the next video, let me explain something to you folks. I know there's a lot of, and the funny part is Trump fans actually watch this podcast, which is I'm surprised about. So number one, thank you guys for watching. I know you don't really say a lot, but you say it afterwards as if you need to review it. But hey, you're watching, so that must mean something. But anyway, it's interesting where they come back to me and say, well, that doesn't mean anything because the House and the Senate have to impeach him, and it's all Republicans, and they're not going to do it right now. Yeah, you got a point. You do have a point. The House representatives and the Senate are Republican. And yes, for a president to be impeached, it must have 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate to move forward to impeachment hearings. Again, you're exactly right. But here's the thing that a lot of people keep missing. Mueller is only there to investigate collusion as far as Russian interference and campaign influencing. His whole, and granted, that is a broad spectrum that they gave him, but they gave it to him basically to look for the same things that we already know. That lobbying on a capitalist scale leads to the oligarchy that we have right now. And we have an oligarchy that's trying to be a dictatorship. But the only reason it actually exists is because lobbying is legal. As long as you can funnel money because of that freaking citizen case. I can't citizen there. It'll take me a second to come up with the name. But that case that was ruled such long ago to where you don't have to disclose who the donors are. So you have unmeasurable amounts of money being poured into these campaigns. And of course, and another thing I keep bringing up, I said, aside from Russian interference, which is almost every agency, government and otherwise, have said Russia has been involved. You already have 12 Russian diplomats who are being indicted. You have one actual person who is allegedly a Russian spy that was working with the NRA, and she was caught. So you may not have, I'm not going to say concrete evidence, but you have a shitload of smoke, like being in Snoop Dogg's house smoke. And I'm just saying that kind of smoke right there should tell you a lot, should actually tell you where we are in this. It's just that there is so much there. And I'm sorry, where there's smoke, there's fire. And Trump is at the center of it. But I can't hold him accountable just because, like I said now, and I say this a million times as far as voting, this is why voting is so essential. A lack of voting from the previous election led us to how we got Agent Orange, aside from Russian interference. That's the truth. A lot of people didn't vote in the last election. I'm hoping this changes the midterms. Midterms are coming up in November. I am seriously hoping, for the simple fact of the matter, that changes. But, could be argued, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, all this evidence right now just points out the simple fact of the matter is that there's a shitload of smoke there. And the funny part is, and I know this is kind of a Trump-heavy show, so I'm trying to get to the videos as soon as I can, so please bear with me. But Trump was actually at a rally when the news broke about Cohen taking the plea deal. And I'm going to show a little bit about this because this is a little bit over 15 minutes long, so we're not going to play the whole thing. But just to show you exactly how Trump turned around and pretty much, I'm not going to say ignored it, but he lightly skimmed it. But I'll just let you see the video and go make your minds up from there.
Argues there has not been a darker moment for a president or for the presidency since Richard Nixon resigned on the verge of impeachment in 1974. Those are some heavy words. Would you agree? Because last I checked, Richard Nixon wasn't holding a rally on a night like that, and their President Trump was at a rally with ardent supporters who think that yesterday was nonsense.
Well, that's the key difference here, Stephanie, is how the electorate processes all of this news, if they're processing it really at all. I think a lot of people, especially now, have just been so inundated that they can't really differentiate one scandal from another. That said, with the echoes of Watergate here and the unindicted co-conspirator and President Trump's involvement in the accusations that Michael Cohen has made against him, this is going to shift to be the focus going into the midterms. And Republicans are going to be knocked back on their heels and are in even graver danger of losing the House and possibly the Senate, not just because of President Trump's legal troubles, but I'm hearing a lot of concern that all of the ethical issues clouding congressional Republicans right now, you have 2 sitting members of Congress, Republicans, who are under indictment. You have this whiff of corruption around the presidency. Democrats are already exploiting this in their television ads. And let's remember the 2006 midterm elections, which washed Republicans out of power in Washington, also was about corruption. Everyone attributes it to the Iraq War and voter fatigue over George W. Bush. But you had the Abramoff scandal, you had Scooter Libby, and then you had Mark Foley and the scandal involving the House pages and sexually explicit messages sent. And this just all came crushing down on the Republican Party. And I think that you're looking at a situation that is, if not as serious, even more serious than that.
All right, well then, that's not a whiff, Jeremy, that's a stank. President Trump just tweeted again, I feel very badly for Paul Manafort and his wonderful family. Justice took a 12-year-old tax case, among other things, applied tremendous pressure on him, and unlike Michael Cohen, he refused to make up stories in order to get a deal. Such respect for a brave man. What do you think, Brett?
It sounds like the preamble to
Okay. So that was his response to that, to Paul Mann, to basically saying, you know, Cohen's a rat, which takes me back to the mafia thing again. It's just like mafia is they don't like loose ends, even if you're a lawyer. And you're right, Vaughn. And thanks, man, for watching. It's the electoral preschool's fault. Well, yeah, lack of education, lack of being an informed society will lead to decisions like this, but you're exactly right. But another thing which is kind of funny, where everybody kept asking what Trump was going to say about this. And the rally, which I will get to, because the rally goes to a whole nother subject. But this is what he said as far as Trump, as far as Michael Cohen. Because the funny thing about it was, of course, Trump doesn't talk to anybody but his state news, Fox News. So it's amazing to me that you already know something's up, because he can't be presidential and talk to everybody. He only goes to Fox News because it's a safe place. So this is what they got as far as him when they told him about Cohen basically turning on him.
President Trump now responding to the bombshell from his former fixer and attorney Michael Cohen. In a new Fox News interview, the president was asked about Cohen's testimony, his statements yesterday under oath before a federal judge that he directed, that the president, Mr. Trump, directed him, coordinated with him to make hush money payments to 2 women who said they had an affair with Mr. Trump. Here's what he said just moments ago. This is the president of the United States when asked about his knowledge of those payments.
Later on, I knew. Later on. But you have to understand, Ainsley, what he did, and they weren't taken out of campaign finance. That's a big thing. That's a much bigger thing. Did they come out of the campaign? They didn't come out of the campaign. They came from me, and I tweeted about it. You know, I don't know if you know, but I tweeted about the payments. But they didn't come out of campaign. In fact, my first question when I heard about it was, did they come out of the campaign? Because that could be a little dicey. And they didn't come out of the campaign, and that's big. But they weren't. It's not even a campaign violation. If you look at President Obama, he had a massive campaign violation, but he had a different attorney general, and they viewed it a lot differently.
Let's assess what we just heard with our crime and justice reporter Shimon Prokopez is with us, and our politics reporter and editor-at-large Chris Saliza. Chris, what's your reaction?
Okay, 2 things. One, Donald Trump saying he didn't know at the time runs directly counter to what Michael Cohen said in the plea agreement. Michael Cohen said it was directed and coordinated along with the President of the United States.
To be precise, this is what he told the federal judge yesterday in New York, that he made these two payments to these two women, Stormy Daniels, Karen McDougal, quote, in coordination and at the direction of a candidate for federal office. And he then said it was designed to, quote, influence the election.
Okay, so you can say, well, it's a he said, sort of. Michael Cohen is testifying under oath in that plea agreement. And the Southern District of New York, the prosecutors have to believe that he is testifying truthfully in order to say, okay, we'll give you a plea agreement. So that's point one. Point two, I don't know that Donald Trump understands what he's talking about as it relates to campaign finance law.
Not a damn thing.
Sure, if it didn't come from the campaign, that's one thing. But even so, it would mean that he was loaning money to Michael Cohen as sort of an in-kind contribution to his campaign. That would then have to be disclosed. Put aside the fact that, according to Cohen, this was all part of an attempt to influence the election by keeping these two women, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, silent. So he's not on solid legal ground here, but I always defer to Shimon.
Well, here's the other thing, and they made this very clear, that the prosecutors said this was being done to influence the election. So what does it matter in terms of whether this was a personal, whether this came from the president personally or the campaign? They made it very clear, and Michael Cohen in court made it very clear. I was doing this to influence the 2016 campaign at the direction and the cooperation of Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, where do I begin? First off, President Agent Orange, President Obama didn't have any campaign violations. The violation you're actually talking about was the donation that was actually disclosed because Fox News actually tried to bring that up during President Obama's second term and try to say that the campaign that he was running against with Mitt Romney had some undisclosed donors, which come find out that it was already reported, which is why that story came and gone like a fart in the wind. So nice try, Toupee. Thank you, Vaughn. Fuck out of here, Toupee. Exactly. And another thing, by that interview alone, Trump has just admitted that he knew. Now, I know a lot of you guys are right now just going, he just admitted it. He just admitted that he knew about the payments. He just admitted that he loaned the money to Michael Cohen while he was on his campaign. And just like the CNN lawyer analyst just said, that is still considered campaign money. Now, here's the thing about this. And I know campaign finance laws during elections can be completely confusing, about as much confusing as the tax code every year because they keep changing it. But the bottom line is this, to simplify it all down. Whatever money is handled, transferred, loaned, or given during the campaign of a politician's presidency run has to be disclosed for tax purposes. If it's not disclosed, then that's actually violating campaign laws, in which those laws do carry federal crimes. So again, follow the money. And again, and the funny part is Trump went, and I keep in mind, guys, this is me staying with this for almost 2 years. Trump 6 or 7 months ago, when this got brought up, he sat there and said, I didn't know about the payments. He said his lawyer didn't know about the payments. He's on recorded audio and video on multiple interviews saying that neither him nor his lawyer knew about the payments. I'm sorry, Donald Trump, have you ever heard of perjury? Because that's what he can get you on. They got Michael Vick for perjury. I'm certain they can get you for perjury. So again, I know Trump admitting something. And this is why I sit there and say, again, for all my Trump fans that like to watch and don't want to comment because you don't want to be found out, that's okay. Stay in the closet if you want to. But again, I am saying this because Mueller doesn't have to present his findings to the Senate and the House for impeachment. The beauty part about this whole special investigation is that Mueller can give this to the state attorney. The state attorney can charge the president for campaign finance laws. The president cannot use he cannot use executive privilege. He cannot be pardoned. He can actually be brought in just like any other citizen if charges by attorney general are brought up. Jeff Sessions couldn't stop it if he wanted to. Simply put, because although he's the U.S. Attorney General, he cannot stop another state attorney general from proceeding with this court case as long as there is irrefutable evidence. So good old Jeff Sessions can't stop nothing if, say, for instance, New York State attorney decided to bring Trump up on charges. Which if he's not impeached, chances are that's what's going to happen. But I always love this part because I'm not looking forward to it, and I wish BJ was on here. BJ has a wonderful name for Sarah Sanders, PBS logo in the face. And now that I see Sarah Sanders, I can't help but see that PBS logo now. So thanks, BJ, for that. Thanks for putting that in my head. But here's the funny thing. So I know Sarah Sanders, I'm sorry, you have to lie. You sit there and you want to sit there and defend the president. I mean, you are the White House speaker, which means you speak on behalf of the presidency. But it's interesting in this one where, like I said, this has been a wonderful 48 hours, is what she said about this.
Damage control mode after two of President Trump's former aides become felons. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders repeating the same message.
As the president has said, we've stated many times, he did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. The president in this matter has done nothing wrong.
Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, pled guilty to campaign finance violations and tax fraud charges, adding he broke the law in coordination with and at the direction of Trump.
They didn't come out of the campaign, and that's big. But they weren't. It's not even a campaign violation.
President rushing to defend his former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who was found guilty of 8 counts of financial crimes. Tweeting, "I feel very badly for Paul Manafort and his wonderful family." Trump praising Manafort for refusing to break, prompting speculation he might consider a pardon. A possibility Trump's attorney Rudy Giuliani addressed last month.
If in fact the president and his advisors, not me, come to the conclusion that you've been treated unfairly. These pardons happen in these political investigations.
The president also claiming today that Cohen's campaign finance violations are, quote, not a crime, and falsely claiming that President Obama's campaign had similar issues.
Violation. If you look at President Obama, he had a massive campaign violation, but he had a different attorney general, and they viewed it a lot different.
Obama's campaign paid a $375,000 fine from the Federal Election Commission for reporting errors, but never faced accusations that aides intentionally sought to conceal campaign contributions that violated the law. Cohen reaching a deal with prosecutors on charges related to his hush money payments to 2 women who claimed to have had affairs with Trump.
And that's what Donald Trump is. He's an unindicted co-conspirator. Make no mistake about it, based on this plea agreement.
The court documents explicit references to Trump blindsided the president, White House sources told CNN. As Trump's legal risk magnifies, the president plans to aggressively try to discredit his former aide as a liar who should not be believed as a witness, according to sources. Republicans on Capitol Hill also ducking the issue, with just 2 months until the midterm elections.
All we know about it is that he's pled guilty, and everything else that you're asking me is speculation.
I don't think we know all that. No, that's not what I said. That's what you said.
Oh, it's so funny. And I say it's so funny because, again, this is what Trump does. When he knows he's in a corner, discredit, disavow, and also mislead. Throw out something out there for everybody else to grab onto, and then from there, let nature take its course. His followers, his cult, will sit there and see him for nothing more than the orange god he is, and says Trump can do no wrong because Trump is their fantasy. Keep in mind, again, the mountain of evidence before Cohen turned, before Manafort, because Manafort did accept the deal. So it's kind of funny they don't mention that. I mean, it was mentioned, which is kind of funny now. Manafort has taken a deal with Mueller. He is talking to Mueller. Keep in mind, Manafort's offices were raided, and they have the same documents that were in Manafort's office. Cohen has recordings from when he took from Trump explaining the payments. And if you believe Omarosa, which I don't know how many people do, because let's be honest, you really don't trust the House. You really don't trust the House Negro when she gets kicked out the House. So take it how you will. But she supposedly has audio. Now, keep in mind, before all this, he already had speculation. He already had a mountain of alleged evidence that could be brought to light well before his cabinet of the best people started dropping like flies, whether resigned, whether indicted, whether brought up on charges. And another thing where Trump actually gets it wrong is that campaign laws are actually crimes. They are crimes. If they weren't crime, okay, keep in mind, if campaign laws weren't crimes, why are they attached with federal guidelines? So again, this is what Trump does. He disavows, he disproves, he throws so much mud in the water and then proceeds to stomp it up that at this point the whole view is clouded. But again, this is the part where I usually love this, because you can't sit there and say beyond a shadow of a doubt. And just like they just said, Trump knows that he just indicted himself. And he said it 4 or 5 times. And Vaughn, you're right. You know, he's calling Cohen a bad lawyer now because he flipped. And yeah, Daryl Scott was right beside him. But let's be honest, he's a fake ass pastor anyway. Hi Kitty, thanks for watching as well. But it made me laugh when I see all these Republicans. You know, I like to think of them as them not kissing, not bending down, and they pretty much are kissing the ring. Republicans are not going to go nowhere near Trump at this point. You can't even to be really honest, you can't get a Republican right now to say anything against Trump. You know what they are? They are like the Jackson 5 when Papa Joe's on the stand. Nobody's not saying shit. Not Michael, not Jermaine, not Tito. They ain't saying shit. So it's amazing to me that you have, here's the thing, Republicans, and I know, and here's the thing about Republicans, here's the thing that I don't get about y'all, aside from the fact that you're against minorities, women, overly religious, heavily anti-Semitic, and literally just a slight bit of misogyny. But again, what I don't get about you guys is that when do you not notice that you're on a burning ship? You are literally sitting on the Titanic, and that son of a bitch is about to hit it. That son of a bitch is about to hit the iceberg. Nobody's willing to take lifeboat. Nobody's willing to sit there and go, yeah, we nominated an idiot, but that idiot gave us everything we wanted. We got the tax plan for the rich that we wanted. We were able to cut into Social Security and Medicare. We were able to give an increase to a military that can't find $1.7 billion that they spent over the last 25 years. But Trump's not a bad guy. So they say. But again, and you're right, Vaughn, it is an agenda, because it is an agenda. It is literally the military industrial complex loving the fact that we're still in 5 theaters of war. They're just not announced as much. They love the fact that we're still taking oil from Saudi Arabia. Although the funny part about that is Saudi Arabia is about to cut us off, and then oil prices are going to spike up again. So it's interesting, like I said, when you add all that into it, when you add all that together, there is an agenda. And yeah, they'll let the world burn before they admit wrong. Yeah, they will go that route. I think they will go the Joker route. They will sit there and watch the world burn with a smile on their face, because it is a capitalist society. It is a capitalist society that does not have borders. There's no restrictions anymore. It's if you got the money, I got the honey. And that unfortunately is the reason why we need actual laws that actually ban lobbying. You know, if you honestly want to get the corruption out of Congress, you first have to get rid of the money. And I'm going to be kind of honest with you. If the same people that are taking the money are the same people voting on the laws, good luck. Because like I said about the NFL and black players, would I love for all black players in the NFL to not play for 5 weeks? Yes, I would love that. to show that they're standing in solidarity against injustices against minorities and against minorities and women, against from police and other social injustices. I would love that. But again, you're talking to kids who have signed multi-million-dollar deals and endorsements, and you're telling them that to give that up. A lot of them came off that ramen. They're not ready to go back to ramen. Some of them have had a taste for Cheesecake Factory and the finer things in life. And you're going to stand and tell them to stand up for a cause that might jeopardize that life? Some of them may do it. Some of them may not. But unfortunately, not all. In the same sense with Republicans. Republicans, you don't have to bend the knee. You literally can make Joffrey go right off the plank. And it's a funny that, every Republican that show the ones just there will not speak about Trump. They won't. Like I said, it's interesting to me. Every Democrat right now, and I know elections are coming up. Elections are in November. The midterms are in November. And it is projected that Democrats right now could possibly take the House and the Senate. And if they do take the House and the Senate, then it's all but assured that they can go forward with impeachment. Because like I said, 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate lead to impeachment of the president. So they could go that route. But again, it's interesting as far as where we see things. And like I said, with Trump doing all this crap, it is amazing to me how the writing's not on the wall. Because like I said, the same guy who's actually investigating Trump right now is the same guy who investigated Nixon for Watergate. And it took them 2 years to get him. And Nixon thought he was safe. Apparently he was wrong. But another thing that I did want to show before we move into other subjects besides Trump, because I just thought that was funny that both his campaign manager and his lawyer both turn and flip on him in the same day. But here's the one thing I've noticed, because Lindsey Graham, if you don't know who Lindsey Graham is, he is that overzealous, bloated gas of hot air that is still in Congress. He's a Republican for South Carolina, and it's interesting how he talks about impeachment. This case was made. He actually said this way back in 1999. So here's the fun part about this. 1999, if anybody can remember, was when a certain president was around, and they talked at one point about impeachment for certain activities. But this is what Lindsey Graham said, and it's funny now that no Republican will either even attempt or get near it.
It's not about punishment. Impeachment is about cleansing the office. So the point I'm trying to make is you don't even have to be convicted of a crime to lose your job in this constitutional republic. If this body determines that your conduct as a public official is clearly out of bounds in your role, because impeachment is not about punishment. Impeachment is about cleansing the office. Impeachment is about restoring honor and integrity to the office.
What wise words. Wise words, truly indeed. It's just interesting now that, the same person who said that is being silent right now. And they showed him that video of himself, and all he could do was walk off. Amazing how your own words will come back to haunt you, and yet you can't find the words to actually defend yourself. But you're a Republican, so you're used to that. But another thing I didn't want to talk about, because like I said, I didn't want to spend this entire podcast about Trump, but it was just needed to. So the second part about this is going to be perception. And I know the media gets a bad rap, unless you're Fox News, because Fox News is state news. Let's just be honest about that. But something I wanted to talk about, because it's local. And because it's local, and I talk about perception, because as news stations that are out there, you guys have you're supposed to have an unbiased perception to where you show us both sides. The job of the news is to inform individuals with enough information from both sides of the story and allow the viewer to make up their own mind. But the key thing is informing. And like I said with Fox News and some other ones out there that are, how can I put this? They're leaning toward the right, which means they're conservative or ultra conservative or just all the way extreme right. Those are the ones that annoy me so because, again, they're pushing a narrative. So I'm going to actually point out one in my local hometown of Nashville. So our local news, NBC News affiliate, WSMV, decided to put up something about protesting, as far as, protesting and how it costs the city and things of that nature, as far as how it affects us. So the one thing that has bothered me, which I'm about to play right now, and you'll probably see it the moment I start playing, but I'm going to play this video as far as them talking about the price of protest, and you're probably going to see why I'm aggravated.
Respond to their own, but we don't have enough resources to do that because we're tied up staffing a protest somewhere.
What are you willing to pay for a protest? The numbers are in. We now know what some of the recent demonstrations are costing Nashville. News 4's Carly Gordon put in an open records request to find out just how much was spent. Carly, turns out these protests cost the city in more ways than one.
That's right, Tracy. It's not just money, it's also time and resources spent on protecting the protesters themselves and the rest of the city. As for whether it's worth it, well, it depends who you ask.
Hundreds took to the streets calling for changes within Metro's police department. 5 days earlier, outside Core Civic, protesters locked arms through cemented barrels. One woman even suspended herself in a contraption 20 feet above ground. That day, more than 70 officers and 18 supervisors were pulled from patrolling Nashville neighborhoods. There were 62 people who called police for non-emergency help who had to wait. As for the monetary cost, Metro spent $3,147 on overtime for officers at the Core Civic protest, $6,975 on the Black Lives Matter march, for a total of $10,123.
When we're at a time with a budget crunch and trying to find $1.9 million in savings, it's just not appropriate to have to expend that kind of money on something it's not really a necessity.
It's not a lot of money whenever it comes to people's lives and protecting lives.
There's also the debate over this. Protesters breaking the law.
And I know for some people, it looks like people are being, my gosh, why are they all out here? Why are they sitting in the street? Why are they laying in the street? Well, you haven't listened. And so this is the way we get your attention.
I would have to disagree. You have the ability to peacefully assemble, but you're not allowed to break the law. And that's what it boils down to.
Additionally, there are often court costs associated with these protests. For example, during the Core Civic protest, 20 people were arrested. Their cases are still pending. Tom, Tracy?
Okay, so here's what ticks me off about that. For the simple fact of the matter was the imaging. You can talk about cost all you want to, but when a viewer, let's be honest, when a viewer not so observing, I said say when they're looking beyond the pictures, they're listening to actually what's being said and things of that nature. All they see is Black Lives Matter. You see the justice for Dan because Daniel Hambrick, which is a local story about a young black teen who was actually shot in the back by an officer because the officer swears up and down he had a gun. But reports so far have not shown that a weapon was recovered on the scene. So again, murder. But when you see protest and they're talking about the price of the protest, to anybody else that's not reading beyond those lines, they're going to sit there and see, oh, so police are saying that because of all these protests that are going on, they're taking away resources and we have to pay the officers. So let me get this straight. You're complaining about paying the officers to do their job, and the fact that you have a limited police force and resources means that, of course, you're going to shift the blame on the protest. You're going to shift the blame on those that are going out in the street. Keep in mind, Any protest that's done in the city automatically gets police presence because they are there to ensure that the protest is peaceful and that it doesn't get out of hand. No protest, very few protests will actually request police presence. They do it as a safe measure. But again, police, don't get me wrong, but aren't law enforcement there to protect and serve? So if the president of the Fraternal Order of Police is complaining, mind you, he's like, well, we have a 1.9 million budget shortfall that we're trying to find savings for. So let me get this straight. So when it comes to protecting and serving and you guys get your budget cut, you don't want to pay cops. Cops don't show up. Violence is bound to ensue. But because of the protesters, which comes back to me again, you show those images of Black Lives Matter, of justice for Dan, and all those multiple other people who are marching in civil disobedience, which is allowed by you. You're complaining that because of their actions, the city has to pay more. And WSMV, which I said, an NBC affiliate here in Nashville, I want to say so badly to you, and I hope one of your A&R people see this or it gets sent to you guys, but I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, you're what's wrong with respected journalism right now. You are what's wrong because you're putting out a perspective. You're actually being exactly what National Fox News is. You're putting out a perspective that if anybody else who wasn't paying attention will sit there and go, well, it's Black Lives Matter that's ruining everything, they should be treated like a terrorist organization. Bravo. You've introduced a narrative. At the same time, it's not unbiased. If your whole point about the protest, then show other protests. You're only showing protests that are only dealing with Black people. You're only showing protests that are dealing with minorities and minorities marching. That's all they see. So why are you surprised when other people, well, let's be honest, white people see this and they're going to be like, some of them are going to harbor feelings of hatred. Some of them are going to be like, well, that's just because of what's going on. But you know what they'll do? They'll take the cops' side. The cops aren't getting paid. No, I'm sorry. Are the protesters actually preventing the cops getting paid? Because here's my thing. If first responders are, police, ambulance, fire, if first responders are not getting paid or serviced properly, that sounds like an office of the mayor and local legislation problem. But it's not a civic problem as far as the average normal Nashville citizen can take care of. Because let's be honest, you found the $500 million to build the Music City Center because the Nashville Convention Center was going to be apparently not used anymore. So you decided to build a big ass place, $500 million to build it. Then you pay for a stadium because back then Bud Adams didn't want to pay for a new stadium when he brought the Titans from Houston to here. So again, on the taxpayers' dime, you built the stadium. On the taxpayers' dime, you redid Bridgestone Arena. On the taxpayers' dime, you built the Nashville Sound's first Tennessee Park, where Greer Stadium still sits there in shambles. We're sitting there putting money. We simply seem to find money for all these other things around Nashville, but yet when it comes to first responders, when it comes to education, when it comes to fixing things like the roads around here, your budget is short. Again, perception alone. And this is why WSMV, you're not alone. There's other stations just like you that I can't stand because you are exactly what's wrong with investigative journalism. You are. Because all you're doing is presenting a side and you're not sitting there saying, well, it happens on both sides. Because last time I checked, I didn't see you showing the rally when the KKK did it in Murfreesboro either. So there you go. But from there, like I said, going back to perception again. So I know the last podcast I did for this, I went over the fact of hair and I explained about my locks and the reason why I keep them and things of that nature. So it is amazing to me where some educators and educational institutions will find reasons to prevent kids from coming inside. And this one is similar to the kid I showed about having locks. So I'll just play this and we can go from there.
I don't want this to happen.
Yes, you do.
Okay, so really that was another video, short and sweet, that pretty much, oh, the little girl couldn't go in because of her hair. So here's my thing. Schools have now some schools do have uniforms. I lucked out as far as me going to school. I never had to wear uniforms because, back then we had zero tolerance and we actually had common sense. So, lucky me, didn't have to do that. So I understand some schools these days have school uniforms for reasons beyond my comprehension. I don't know why, but they have them. Okay, fine. You guys dictate certain clothing as if that's going to stop bullying, which is very funny because you're never going to stop bullying because you're always going to have bullying in schools and in life. So good luck. But again, it amazes me so that what does a child's hair have to do with anything? Because like I said in the previous podcast, you associate locks with bad intentions. Bad intentions lead to bad kids. So when you see a kid with locks, you immediately think he's a bad kid, which I thought was funny because what if that kid had spiked hair? What if they had different colored hair? What if they had pink or red or blue? Or what if they went full goth? Or what if they went full juggalo? That tells you how old I am if I'm telling you about juggalos. If you know about juggalos, you know exactly the route I'm going about. What if the kid was dressed? The kid had grunge hair, and I'm just thinking to myself, you wouldn't stop those kids, but you'll stop a kid because their hair is braided and it has locks, or any of those styles. And that amazes me so that you guys at that point are not interested in education. You're interested in conformity. You are interested in taking that child's individuality and saying that your individuality doesn't matter. You need to join us. You know who also does that? Cults. You're going to join us. In order for you to get here, you have to do this. And I'm sorry. That to me is where schools step over. You can do uniforms. Okay. I don't agree with it. But if that's the rule, that's the rule. But a child's hair shouldn't have nothing to do with the fact of how they want education. But aside from that, like I said, again about perception, and I know I'm sticking to law enforcement. So this next video I'm going to show, it might be a little bit, it is going to be a little hard to watch, just because to give you an idea of police escalating situations. So I'm going to say this off the bat. It is very graphic. So viewer discretion advised, but this is a reason why I still keep saying fuck the police, because police actually aggravate situations. Because here's the thing before I play this video. It is amazing to me that police always sit there and say, well, I'm trying to calm him down. But if you're a minority and you see police, and police usually come in packs. By packs, I mean 5 if you're a black guy, because, fear for my life. But when you have 5 police officers in your face and they're yelling, that's not de-escalating the situation. That's showing that you have force. And that's the problem. So when you sit there and you're, as you say, de-escalating the situation, you're really not. And in this situation, I think the simple fact of the matter, what I'm about to show, is just that the cops themselves caused the situation to happen. But again, this is very graphic, so viewer discretion advised.
Why did you do that with my phone?
You're 2 seconds. You're 2 seconds. what?
Interested.
Calm down. Calm down.
Yeah.
Bro, I don't even drink. What are you talking about? Have you done a breathalyzer on me? Have you done a breathalyzer on me to see if I can talk? This man is flashing a light in my eyes for no reason.
Get the baby out of here.
That's my child. He could be exactly where he's at. Give me my child. Give me my child. Give me my child. This my son. He ain't got to go nowhere. Know that. This my son. He ain't got to go nowhere. This man just told me to take my child in the house.
Mr. Brown,
You done in violation, bro.
can I talk to you?
Yes, you can, bro.
Wait, calm down.
You
You got the baby. Calm your ass down.
Calmly.
There's no criminal order in this
Every time I talk, you're interrupting. I'm listening to you right now. Shut your mouth for 2 seconds. When you talk like that, you don't have the right to tell me to shut my mouth.
Good. One last chance. If you keep yelling, I'm taking you to jail.
You ain't got the right
I'm
to tell me
taking
to
you
shut
to
my
jail.
mouth. You can tell me to be quiet for a second.
You're going to jail for disorderly person if you keep yelling.
What? On my own property?
Jail for disorderly
Come on,
person.
okay. What are you doing?
Okay.
Go to jail. You can't push me to shit. Come on, man. You can get the baby back. Back up. Back up. The baby bro, back up now.
Okay, but you not going to jail. Because I ain't got no money to get your brother.
And they tased him with the baby in his hand, boy. Oh my God, bro. You're f***ing old, bro. You're f***ing that thing, bro. You're tasing. You're old. They some point out. Y'all still tasing. You're tasing him, man. Back up. Come on, man. What are you doing, bro? Y'all still tasing him, man. So what? Get back. He had a baby in his hand. That's when he got tased.
Why did you do that with my son?
He had plenty of warnings to let go.
But come on, man.
He had plenty of chances to calm down.
This man.
He had plenty of time to calm down, and he refused. Every time I talked, he interrupted me, and I told him, if he keeps yelling, he will go to jail.
I just wanted to grab the baby, bro.
He did.
Look at his
Because here's
hand.
the thing.
This is my baby.
He had plenty of
Why did
chances
you
to
do
calm
that?
down.
Oh, sorry, I can't see tonight. That's your shame.
You're going to give me his name?
That shit ain't cool.
Look at my baby. Look at my baby.
Too much. Hold on.
He had the baby here. The cop had the taser on this side of his chest. And I'm trying to grab the baby from him. They still tased him anyways without me. I had to catch the baby from out of his hand.
2 seconds before you get arrested.
Calm down. Calm down.
Yeah.
Bro, I don't even drink. What are you talking about?
Because I ain't got no money to get your brother.
And they tased him with the baby in his hand, boy.
So again, I apologize. I know that was a little rough because, like I said, when it goes back to perception, the cops, like I said, when you have 5 cops surrounding you and they're, trying to talk to you, I don't know what it is about some law enforcement types. If you're going to talk to a guy, you don't talk to the guy like you're about to bum rush him, number one. Number two, the guy is yelling. And anybody with a hint of customer service or has worked in customer service, you already know if they're yelling, you yelling is just going to escalate it. At the same time, it's almost like they didn't want to come to talk. They actually, instead of them actually trying to de-escalate the situation, they're actually aggravating it. And again, as you saw at the end of that, where somehow, because the officers charged him while he's holding the child, mind you. So again, an officer's first go-to is preservation of life. If the man is holding a baby and you tase him, I don't think you know how electricity works. If you tase somebody and they're holding somebody else's hand, electricity travels. So the person whose hand they're holding is going to get shocked too. In the same sense, the baby, which he's holding, mind you, which tells me, okay, if he's holding a child, his child, he's not going to do anything threatening because it's his child. But again, law enforcement officers in that scene didn't talk. That was them showing force. That's like them saying, okay, shut up and listen to us. That's not de-escalating the situation. That's your show of force, thinking that the person's going to back down. And that might work on some people, but there's going to be some people that know the law and be like, no, I don't have to stand down. I don't have to do anything on my property. So what the messed up part about it is that the officers, I'll go ahead and call it, they were in the wrong. You didn't have to tase that man. I said, truth be told, one officer kind of actually was starting to get him to calm down. He was starting to. And then the other guy just having to jump in and re-escalate it. But again, I don't know what it is about certain law enforcement types out there. Instead of de-escalating, they choose to aggravate. It's almost like saying, look, you cool, if you calm down, I'll calm down. We can talk about this and go from there. It's not that hard to be a fucking decent human being, especially when you have backup guns and tactical advantages. Which is funny how the chief of police, of course, he's got to defend his people, because every cult defends their own. Every gang is going to sit there and defend their own. So I'm not surprised the chief of police is going to sit there and say, well, they did the best they could and they made the best choice in a tactical situation. Tactical means action. Tactical doesn't mean subduing. Tactical doesn't mean preservation of life. It just means getting down the assailant by any means necessary. And tasing him while holding a baby is certainly not going to get anywhere. So again, for all those that don't know how I feel about the situation, fuck the police. But speaking of police, which is going to be interesting because, like I said, this is all about perception. So I'm not sure for a lot of you guys if you know who Molly Tibbetts is. And again, this is probably going to be the one where I go on a little bit of a rant. So I apologize if I get sidetracked. But when I saw this story, it made me mad because Molly Tibbetts was a missing case. She was out jogging one day and then went missing. A body was recovered. It has yet to be confirmed to be her, but it is under highly likely that it is her. So here's the thing about this case that bothers me as such before I play this video. It is that the families and law enforcement and everybody else went looking for this girl. I mean, a hotline was established offering her more money as far as tips and things of that nature go, and things that and the whole shebang. What bothered me about this, and yes, she's a white woman, but what bothered me about this so much is that a single white woman goes missing and she gets all this attention. How many black women have been missing for this long now, and yet no one says their name? I mean, you've probably seen it. You've probably seen the "Have you seen me's?" Whether you go on a Walmart, Target, any grocery store, they used to have them always posted up. "Have you seen me?" And you would sit there and think that no one is looking for these women. And it's amazing to me that one white woman can get attention. Now, I'm not saying it's not justified. As far as this particular person, I'm just saying that when it comes to other women who are not white, can't seem to get the same attention and assistance that this person was getting, even though, like I said, allegedly, this may not be the body, this may not, it hasn't been confirmed as of yet. But one thing that has bothered me about this case is basically about the suspect, which on this video, it's going to say a little bit about that. So just bear with me one moment.
Interpreter at his side, the undocumented immigrant accused of killing a college student from Iowa faced a judge. Police say Christian Rivera not only confessed to killing Molly Tibbetts, he also led them to her body in a cornfield. ABC's Alex Perez was in the courtroom today and has the latest.
Bill and Lauren, authorities are crediting surveillance video from a resident's camera with helping them track down the suspect. He made his first appearance in court earlier today. Now, 24-year-old Christian Rivera was shackled and escorted by deputies for his hearing here in Iowa this afternoon. He's charged with first-degree murder. 20-year-old Molly Tibbetts vanished back on July 18th. The University of Iowa student was last seen going for a run. Investigators say Rivera confessed to following Molly as she was running, abducting her, killing her, and then dumping Molly's body in a cornfield. Investigators say Rivera is in the country illegally. He worked on a nearby farm the last 4 years. In a press conference this afternoon, his employer today said he lied to them and gave them a different identity. The employer also admitting they did not use the Department of Homeland Security's E-Verify system when he was hired and used another verification system instead.
This guy stayed around for 35 days after he did this. Nobody noticed anything different.
Rivera, who has not yet entered a plea, is due back in court August 31st.
Okay, so with that one, and this is the thing that I said, because the moment that, and you've probably heard it, and trust me, the moment you heard an illegal immigrant murdered an American citizen, oh, they took off and ran with it. I was trying to find video of Trump talking about this because Trump couldn't wait to tweet. He couldn't wait to talk. He couldn't wait to tell people that we have to do something about illegal immigration. And what's interesting about this is that as this story is coming out, that this individual, which I couldn't find video on, I apologize, but the individual in this case, Christian Rivera, which is a weird name to spell it, but he was actually a legal immigrant, which, come to find out, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement have just confirmed it. But because the simple fact of the matter that Agent Orange has already, and others have already sat there and reported this as him being illegal, you've already painted the picture. You've already painted the picture that an illegal immigrant has murdered an American citizen, which at the same time paints the perception that now Trump is going to be justified in what he's doing, and his cult will not be shaken by that. And that alone says a lot to me, is when his cult can sit there and just go, well, he that's the reason why he's building the wall. That's the reason why he's deporting people. That's the reason why he's doing all this, to prevent that. And it's funny how Trump has yet to correct himself. But again, it's all about perception. And that's the thing that has bugged me about that, to where perception alone, it needs to change. It needs to change. What happened to unbiased, respective, objectionable journalism, showing both sides of the case, thoroughly vetting it before releasing it? We have come, this day and age, news is literally like fast food. You know, whoever can put it out there first, whether it's verified or unverified, will go ahead and do so. And that's the problem. But like I said, it's already out there now. It'll just be amazing to see if Trump corrects himself, which, let's be honest, he hasn't corrected himself, well, since ever. But another thing is, just to do some follow-ups before we wrap up this shindig, and thank you all guys who've been watching so far. So for a lot of folks, especially in Tennessee, who remember the Waffle House, the guy that went to the Waffle House closer to my home in Tennessee and killed 5 people. And of course, the hero, I can't remember that guy's name. I'm saying my life right now. So I'm sorry, I'm a little bit on the fraud side, but of course, the hero, this gotta come to me in a minute. I cannot think of his name to save my life. What was that guy's name to save my life? Come on, memory. James Shaw. There we go. Woo! Okay, we're good. I had to look it up. Sorry. Apologize. Sometimes I can't keep everything up here. But James Shaw Jr., that was the guy who actually wrestled the gun away from Travis Wrinkle. And of course, he went running into the woods. There was like a day-and-a-half manhunt, and they found the guy. Okay, so this next story is bound to be very disturbing because keep in mind, this man is accused of multiple murders and evading police. And basically, like I said, I think it's a terrorist act. But again, this news that just came out is a little bit shocking.
It's been exactly 4 months since Travis Ranking was accused of shooting and killing 4 people at a Waffle House in Antioch.
Today, he appeared in court as a judge ruled he's mentally incompetent to go to trial.
News Channel 5's Matthew Torres explains what's ahead.
It was a packed courtroom as dozens of family and friends of the Waffle House shooter victims got to lay eyes on Travis Ranking in person for the very first time. Also in the courtroom was his mother. Travis Ranking's mother had no comment moments after a judge ruled her son was unfit to stand trial.
Is there anything you would like to say to your son?
In a yellow jumpsuit, the accused killer watched as his forensic psychologist testified. She says he suffers from schizophrenia and is a threat to himself and others.
That he is not competent to stand trial.
Judge Mark Fishburne ordered him to a mental health facility in Nashville until he is able to help in his own defense. Prosecutors stressed the hearing was only about his state of mind right now, not his sanity.
Yeah, no, I'm perfectly healthy.
The ruling disputes Ranking, saying he's fine in our exclusive phone interview weeks after his arrest. While he didn't testify, he uttered these words before being asked to stay quiet. Seconds later, he said, quote, "I just wanted him to know why." Family and friends of the victims packed the courtroom, including James Shaw, the man called a hero for stopping Ranking. He tweeted that he's discouraged to hear the current prognosis of the shooter, but believes justice will be served. Aquila De Silva's loved ones wore blue shirts in his honor.
They brought us even closer than we were.
The Ebony Groves' family wore pins. Her brother says today's ruling helps the family's long process to healing.
I'm just going to trust that they know what they're doing and let them do their job.
In Nashville, Matthew Torres, News Channel 5.
Ranking will be held at Middle Tennessee Mental Health Institute, where he'll be required to take medication. Doctors will file a report on his progress in the next 6 months.
Okay. Okay. Oh, hey, BJ, how's it going? So you're right. Unfit to stand trial, but right. Here's the problem I have with that, was that you're telling me that this individual had access to guns. His guns was, and a little bit of background, he was already on TBI's radar, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. He was already on their radar. His guns were taken from him, only to be given back to his father, who his father gave his guns back to his son. His son drove to Waffle House. His son used a gun. His son killed 5 people. And now you're going to sit there and tell me that in the court of law, he is mentally unfit to be tried. I'm sorry. If you have the ability to take a life, you're competent to stand trial. You have the ability to use a gun and you use it to kill, you're competent to stand trial. If you know that you've committed a murder and you've run from the police and hid in the woods, you're competent to stand trial. There is no ifs, ands, or buts around that. It's actually bullshit, really. Because again, and I'm just throwing it out there, what if the killer was black? I mean, granted, he would probably never made it to the arraignment. They would have shot him on sight. But again, how, with all this evidence, can and I'm not saying I'm not a psychiatrist by any means, but I'm looking at it from the logical side. He has apparently state of mind to accomplish all these things, but you're also saying, for the simple fact of the matter, is just that it's almost, for literally and figuratively, how can someone be mentally incompetent to stand trial, but they know how to use guns? They know how to drive. They know how to go to certain spots. Apparently they are in some capacity sane enough. And it's interesting. They're like, well, this is just a trial just for his for his mental state, not for his sanity. If I was a parent, or if I knew someone there that was killed, I would be pissed. That's not justice. Justice would be going ahead and putting him down, because that's what's going to wind up happening anyway. I mean, Tennessee does have a death penalty, and he killed 5 people without malice, and then he's going to turn around and, in the courtroom, it's because of my religion, sir. I was like, it's mystifying to me that, in the court system that we supposedly depend on, and Richard Pryor said it best, you go down there looking for justice, that's what you find, just us. But I cannot see, and like I said, I'm not saying I'm not saying I hope justice does find. I hope justice does find that dude, because no doubt about it, he should be tried and should be hit with the death penalty. You took lives. What is the whole point of even keeping you breathing, in my opinion? But again, it's guy's opinion as far as this goes, because like I said, if we're not already being targets for crazy white people who are religious, we're being targets for law enforcement who always think we're carrying. So that also being said, going into other court cases, which also, if anybody remembers the Charlottesville rally where, unite the right, there was a certain case where there was a guy who basically was armed during the rally, shot into a group of black protesters. And I came across this story, simply put, because it needs to be said. And like I said, if you're like me, you're probably wondering how this guy got off this easy. Check it out.
KKK Imperial Wizard, a man who attended last year's rally and was arrested for shooting a gun there. I want to warn you that some of the language you will hear in her report is disturbing.
I shot a gun. A man had a flamethrower. Richard Preston admitting what he did during the deadly white nationalist Unite the Right rally last year in Charlottesville, Virginia. That's Preston yelling the N-word, aiming and firing in the direction of a black counter-protester wielding a blowtorch. Preston spoke to CNN for the first time since he pleaded no contest in the case against him.
Are you sorry for shooting a gun towards
No, because
a black man?
No, because I protected people on the steps. That's all I was doing.
But you did say the N-word before you fired that gun.
Can I ask you a question? If you're
Why?
standing in a group of 1,000 black folks,
There wasn't 1,000 black folks around you.
I can't tell you how many there was. But okay, a large group.
Less
of
than
black
40?
people. Okay, how do you get one black man's attention in a crowd full of black people?
You say, hey, you with the torch.
Pretty
There's
much.
1,000
You
ways.
didn't care. Preston says he went to protect a Confederate statue as a member of a militia, but he also wears another hat. The heck with all these illegals. That of an imperial wizard of a Ku Klux Klan chapter. For years, he's been trying to rebrand the KKK as peaceful do-gooders, not hate-filled racists.
Do you hate black people?
No, I have friends that are black.
And there's that
an imperial
influence.
wizard of a Ku Klux Klan group, and the Klan has a history of terrorizing black folks. How can you say that?
Some clans did have a history of terrorizing black folks, but not all clans did. And I've never terrorized
Really?
black
Same
folks in my
hoods.
life.
Why not join the Kiwanis Club? Why not call it something different?
Because,
Why the
again,
Ku Klux Klan?
Because I want to see the Klan become what it once was.
He references this, the second rising of the Klan, when thousands marched through Washington in 1925.
At that time, that march was about the fact that our country was allowing immigrants to come here, change their names with no documentation. If your name was Schwarzkopf, you can come here and call yourself Schwartz. Nobody cared.
He fails to mention it was also about keeping blacks, Jews, and immigrants from rising socially or politically. But he says his Klan is different.
It's not about a black man, a white man, a brown man, a red man, and a yellow man. It's about a red, white, and blue.
Preston is still awaiting sentencing in Charlottesville.
How you doing, man? How you doing, my friend?
While he waits, something remarkable is happening because of this man. R&B musician Daryl Davis has spent decades engaging with Klan members and challenging their beliefs. He and Preston have talked for years via phone, and suddenly, Davis was standing up for Preston in court. What do you say to the judge?
I testified on his behalf. I also paid part of his bail money to get him out.
You paid part of his bail money?
I did.
Is he taking you for a fool, using you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
How do you know?
Because he and I were already friends. I said, I am willing to take Mr. Preston, and he has agreed to go down to this museum with me and take a tour of it and learn something.
He's referring to the National Museum of African American History.
Seeing what he's going to see there is not a fantasy. The seed may not blossom today, tomorrow, the next day, but eventually it will come out because the truth can never be squashed.
The two men bonding over history and returning to Davis's home to find another shared passion. His track record speaks volumes. Davis says 200 of the Klansmen he's befriended over the years have left the group, more than 40 of them with a simple gesture, relinquishing their Klan robes to him.
You don't think you'll ever get your robe back?
No, I'll be buried in it. It's already set in stone.
You sure? But then this happened. Richard Preston, who had never been married, had Daryl Davis at his Klan wedding.
As you stand in the presence of God,
This time, it was Davis giving something away. The bride. I mean, his friendship has been something really special to you.
She wanted me to be a part of this wedding. That's beautiful. That's a seed planted.
Hi. Wow. Okay. I almost wanted to sit there and just go, okay, so for all those that don't know, Daryl Davis, there's a meme that goes out where literally did talk about Daryl Davis. This guy is known for talking to former KKK members and persuading them to leave the Klan. Now, I will be honest, whatever the fuck he is saying, his persuasive level must be damn near Merlin level at this point. Because I did not know about the fact that, they gave him the robes. And I'm like, they gave a black dude the robes like a Pokemon badge? I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird to display KKK robes at your house, but I guess if you're going to keep it around like trophies, that's a little weird, but okay. But, and you're right, BJ, Grimace helped out the racist guy. I'll never look at him without seeing Grimace now. But yeah, Daryl Davis is known for talking to Klan members and getting them eventually to leave. The guy got 4 years for shooting into a crowd. Now, keep in mind, I think he got off light. I mean, you shot a loaded weapon into a crowd. 4 years is light because 2 states down, a woman shot her gun in the air to prevent her husband from doing things to her because there was a history of domestic violence. She shot her gun in the air and she spent a few months in prison until she got out. And keep in mind, she shot in the air, not at him, in the air. This individual at a Unite the Right rally shoots to a group of black people, gets 4 years with 3 years probation. So it's a suspended sentence. He basically gets to walk until his sentencing. And I'm just thinking to myself, how? Because again, perception in that case would be like, okay, so if a black person defends themselves, they're a criminal. The white person defends themselves, they're simply defending their constitutional right. Excuse me. And I just don't get that. I mean, it's still the same thing. I mean, well, not the same thing as far as, I'm not going to fire into a crowd with my gun and expect to get 4 years. Shoot, I might be in prison for 20 because that's still an illegal action. That's still attempted murder in some parts. But again, it's Charlottesville, South Carolina. KKK all the way. But the interesting is the guy almost has no remorse for what he did. He really didn't. He will sit there and say, well, I was defending my right. I was defending the people there. No, you're the only one that had a gun. The whole good guy with a gun theory is the reason why shit like this happens. Because anytime that you're out and about and you got a gun, you think that you're doing right. I'm sorry. It's like I've always sat there and said, if I see a guy walk into the same store and he's carrying on his waist, I go to a different store. I don't, and I don't care what people say. It's like, well, you'll feel more safer with me because I have a gun. No, Tech Walker, Texas Ranger, I will not, because I don't know you. To me, you're no different than a policeman that may want to use me for target practice. So why should I trust you simply because you have a permit to carry? You have a permit to carry to defend yourself. You are under no obligation to defend me. But please don't take this the time to be that hero in your dreams to where you think you're going to stop the quote unquote bad guy. Because in my opinion, if you're out there carrying, you are the potential bad guy that can honestly be the ladder match to a problem. And I don't want that. And there's actually no solid argument there that will convince me otherwise that can be done properly. It just can't. It won't. So again, the simple fact of the matter is this man getting 4 years, 3 years suspended sentence with another count still pending amazes me so. But then again, you have the protection for the complexion for the collection. But the last story I'm going to cover tonight, and thank you guys for all watching. I know this one ran a little bit long. I know I had so much I didn't really want to trim it down. So I apologize, guys, for all hanging around for this. And I promise this is going to be the last story. Might be a little on the touchy side. And I say touchy side because it's basically going to be covering the Me Too movement. So let me play this video first, and then I'll go from there as far as that. So that way you guys get an idea.
Obtained an explosive new picture of actress Asia Argento semi-naked in bed with the actor who claims she sexually abused him. The selfie was taken back in 2013. The actor in the picture is 17-year-old Jimmy Bennett, but Argento still denies they ever had any kind of sexual relationship. Correspondent Jason Carroll has more on this for us. Hi, Jason.
And good morning to you. Yes, he was 17 years old, apparently, when that selfie was taken. She was 37. He's now 22. She's now 42. This is the picture, obviously, Carol. She did not want anyone to see. This young actor is claiming that the two had some sort of a sexual relationship. She has said repeatedly that she did not have a sexual relationship with this young man. And in fact, she told the Huffington Post, released a statement saying the following: I strongly deny and oppose the content of the New York Times article. The Times originally was the one that broke the story. I am deeply shocked and hurt by having read news that is absolutely false. I've never had any sexual relationship with Bennett, that being Jimmy Bennett, the young man there that you see in that particular photo. So a little bit of background here. That photo was allegedly taken back in 2013. Again, he was a young actor, then 17 years old. She was 37. And what this really does is it brings into question about her credibility. She, as you know, was one of the early accusers, one of the first accusers, accusing disgraced Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein of sexual assault. Now her credibility now in question with these new revelations.
Okay, so how can we put this? So Me Too movement. Let's we can just go ahead and jump right in on that because that's gonna be the last thing we talk about. So of course, if you don't know what the Me Too movement is, basically what all started was that Asia Argento, Rose McGowan first came out about sexual allegations against Harvey Weinstein. Of course, Harvey Weinstein has been other women have came forward and said that he has, sexually assaulted them, molested them, things of that nature, which eventually led from him leaving his own company and then, still being charged in multiple cases, whether in the U.S. and also overseas. That being said, Asia Argento wasn't one of the originators of the Me Too movement. They just happened to really take it up and run with it and claim it as their own. But what it didn't say in the story, also in almost on a different publication, is that again, when it always comes back to tracing the money, that she had actually paid the then 17-year-old $380,000 out of a settlement. So here's the thing about settlements. Settlements always mean admission of guilt. I mean, like I always said, why in the world, if I have money, I'm going to sit there and pay somebody to go away when I know it's not true? You can sit there and say all you want to. I'll take you to court and then deal with it then. But in this case, she settled for $380,000. So there has to be some window of admission of guilt there, especially with that picture. And I'm sorry, no amount of Photoshop is going to sit there and say that that's not real. At the same time, she has to say, I've never had a history of sexual relations with this person, but I'm like, well, that picture says 1,000 words. But again, when it comes to the Me Too movement, let me be clear. There are multiple cases of individuals who have experienced this type of trauma. And I hope that they do come forward. I hope that they do, I hope they don't wait. That's my big thing. Because I'll be honest, like with Cosby. Cosby, to me, I can't say is a Me Too thing. I think, honestly, Cosby, because he was about to, I don't know if it was ABC or NBC. He was about to buy one of the two major networks. And then this story came out. Then one woman became 5 became 10 became 25. And then I think it got almost up to 70 women at one point. But he's only still being tried. I mean, he's being tried now for one. And keep in mind, it has been decades since these events have happened. Now, I am not saying beyond any means that a victim should never come forward, but you should come forward. But the sooner that you do, and like I said, this goes back to perception again, that the perception of it all is if we see 70 women say 40 or 45 years ago that this man did things to them, of course, the public as it stands is going to sit there and be like, so why did you wait almost 40 plus years to finally come out and say it? The perception will be like you're not looking for justice because it comes down to he said, she said. There's no evidence. It's usually a deposition, and then it goes from there if it goes to trial, or if it's solid enough to go to trial. But after 40 years, it becomes he said, she said. It's not recent. It's not fresh. So I'm not saying how they got Cosby, because keep in mind, Cosby's been through multiple trials. He's been to 2 mistrials. The third one is when the prosecutors finally got a conviction, finally got a guilty conviction, which tells you off the bat how bad they wanted to get him. But I am saying for the Me Too movement, this does put a lot of scrutiny on the women who actually come forward, because if you got a skeleton in your closet in this day and age of digital information and things of that nature, it's found. And not only is it found, it's news. It's usually you putting yourself on a pedestal talking about we won't stand for the abuse of power and the fact that men can use us as sexual favors and we're just trying to make it. And at the same time, you turn around and did the same thing to another individual, but you've paid him off. Money always comes up somewhere, whether it's paper, whether it's digital. It can be tracked and back to a source. And then once that source reveals the truth, what do you expect? I would say, BJ, 40 years does seem suspect, but if they got violated, they deserve justice. I agree. I completely agree. If they did get violated, they do deserve justice. I am saying it is harder to prove, because we all know in a court of law, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. It's what it's how can I put this? Not to make it so simplistic, but in court, it is emotional theater. That's what it is. You are basically hoping the jury will be sympathetic enough to your cause to convict the defendant. Because let's be honest, when it comes to the defendant, the burden of proof is on the plaintiff. Because the defendant is sitting there telling the plaintiff, "What do you have against me?" And in Cosby's case, I think they had a deposition that he was using, which the previous judge had allowed. And I think that, along with the national coverage and all these women coming forward, did lead to a sympathetic jury that did get to a conviction. But again, emotional theater. Now, I'm not saying that a woman that waits that long is not denied justice, but at the same time, it becomes that much more harder to prove. That's where the problem is. I mean, I would like to think that people who are assaulted or violated can come easily. But again, when you're speaking about that, and I can speak, and I've had multiple discussions about this, I understand that the level of difficulty it takes to talk about that trauma takes a while. It does. Truly, it does. But I also think that there needs to be laws put in place to where if there is a false accusation, that the accuser needs to face it. Because not to get away from the Me Too movement, but guys who are high profile have gotten themselves in situations where the woman has accused them of sexual assault and turned out to be false, or they turned out to be the wrong person. But again, the woman doesn't actually get anything done to her as far as punishment. Emmett Till is probably the best example of that. The woman who allegedly pointed out Emmett Till was the one that raped her and things of that nature, which led to Emmett Till's brutal murder, admitted on her deathbed that she lied. Think about that for a second. A woman that has led to one of the most brutalest murders ever committed by white folks to a black man because a white woman lied and on her deathbed admitted that she did lie. She will never see. I mean, I would like to think that she's roasting in hell, but as far as justice goes, the family of Emmett Till will never get that justice. Almost in the same sense, like if you're a guy and you're single and that you're dating, that's got to be in the back of your mind. It's like, especially if you got money. Like if you're a high pro, like I said, this doesn't always happen to everybody. I'm just saying as far as the situations that you put yourselves into, especially if you're high profile, you have to be wary. Because again, there's no legislation that prevents people from calling the police on black folks using the police as a weapon to deterrent. There's no law preventing that from happening. There is a law being pushed through the legislation right now to make that a felony, but hasn't been passed yet. But think about that. If there was a law that was put in for false accusations of rape or sexual assault, I'm not saying that wouldn't prevent those who actually it happened to them would come forward. It would just curve those who are going to lie about it, who are just out there to smear campaign, to make a name for themselves. It would curve that. But like I said, if it truly happened to them, then yes, they do deserve their day in court. But like I said, as years go by, the harder it is to prove. And if I was one of it, we say, BJ, if I was one of Emmett Till's family members, I go drop a deuce on her. Woo, well, yeah, I mean, they wouldn't blame him for that. But when it really comes down to it, and like I said, just to wrap this up in perspective, I mean, this whole thing as far as this week, I mean, we're just on Wednesday. These stories that we just went over about perspective say a lot. And I think that aside from that, there has to be both sides being told, not just one side. And that's the one thing that I'm striving to do as far as this podcast goes. And I know I called out NBC affiliate WSMV because I think they're only showing one side of it. And it's sad because Fox, the affiliate here, WTDV in Nashville, actually does both sides. News Channel 5, also here in Nashville, also does both sides. Hell, even our News 2, which is our ABC affiliate, also gives both sides. To think about this, a Fox News affiliate gives both sides of a story where a NBC News affiliate does not. That is narrative direction, and that's what shouldn't happen. But again, it's one of those things where I say respective journalism is starting to become a dying breed. At the same time, without that respective journalism, we will see less and less stories where unless someone has a video cam, someone has a smartphone, or if someone's doing their own type of online reporting, such like I'm doing, those stories will be less and less getting out, and it'll be less stories that actually grab attention and direct people to the wrong idea. Because like I've always sat there and said, and I say this from the newsroom, which is one of the best shows I've ever seen. But if you ever do get to watch it, it is honestly a good show. But the lead actor in the story, Jeff Daniels, pretty much sat there and said, we're only as good as a country as if its citizens are well informed of all the information available to them. Because an informed country can make better decisions than an uninformed one. Because an uninformed one is how you get Trump. An informed country is how you get Obama. An uninformed country is how you get the Great Depression. An informed country is how you get someone to pull you out of the depression and actually prevent banks from playing with your money. An uninformed society will get you into wars. An informed society will help you avoid them. So again, an informed society makes better choices than an uninformed one, because all an uninformed will do will lead to a dictatorship oligarchy that we just have to get rid of. But like I said, with Trump's two main people flipping, it's only a matter of time. So we're going to end that here. So a little shameless plugging before I go. Of course, with How the Frack We Got Here, it is posted every Wednesday from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time, as well as my Off Limits podcast. One of the things Off Limits will still be this Saturday. We'll be a little bit later this Saturday, probably between 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time this upcoming Saturday. So that way you guys know. Also, my other buddies on here, Vaughn, Big Young BZA Dot, who's also recently on here, also has episodes of I Get That Reference BSTs, which is just a short 30-minute news segments about various things about what's hot and what's not. He also has Rhythmness, where you reminisce over the rhythm, where he actually goes over various musical albums that have just been put out and goes by a 3-tier system to where it's interactive and we can, chat it up with those just like you're chatting up with me right now. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ, which is basically early morning show where he goes over various clips, and also interactive show to where it's grown folks conversation, really. And it is also kind of funny as well. As well as all three of his shows, along with mine, are also in the U group. I'm sorry, not the YouTube group. They're also in the Facebook group. I Get That Reference. And I Get That Reference is a Facebook group, which if you're on Facebook and you're watching this right now, come on and join the group because it is a group for all. It is I Get That Reference with an I, not an L, because if you do that, will be the first thing that pops up. The only condition that we have is that you are active, which means if you're sharing, if you're posting, if you're applying, if you're just starting this conversation, that's all we ask. Don't be a creeper, just be social. And aside from that shows, my other friend Trace, who has the bump down, which also that happened last night, which is basically a show of him just going over what's hot in the streets, what's on the streets, what's on the charts, what's on the mainstream and the underground, and also some in-between stories that he just likes to go over in conversations, which I find interesting and funny. Also are all available under the group I Get That Reference. Also on YouTube, if you look up I Get That Reference, as well as How the Frack We Got Here and Off Limits, they all have their own YouTube pages in which we post the videos that you're seeing here online. So you can definitely like, share, and subscribe there. And definitely tell friends about it. Because like I said, we're trying to create this culture to where it is an informed society. We are basically, in short, not to get Marvel to sue us, we're basically trying to do Wakanda. That's really all we're trying to do. We're trying to do that Wakanda society of a unity with a village mentality, because that is exactly how we'll bring ourselves back to greatness. Aside from that, the last thing I'll say is Vaughn also has audiomac.com. So if you look up www.audiomac.com/bigyoungvza, you'll actually find the audio versions of I Get That Reference podcast, so you'll be able to download and listen to in your own spare time. But with that being said, like I said, the How the Frack We Got Here podcast is an informative podcast, as we're always trying to do best. I try to take it upon myself to present both sides of the argument and allow you as a listener to make up your own mind. But as you can see, from BJ, from Vaughn, from Angie, and everybody else that has commented here, it's all about trying to share ideas and actually all of us walk away a little bit wiser. So again, this has been How the Frack We Got Here. Trying to see what's going to happen next week, because at this point, if we got this in 48 hours, I can only imagine what we're going to get by next Wednesday. But again, thank you guys for all watching this live and on the replay. Also comment on here as well. I love to see how people say it, especially you Trump people, you Trump closet people, which I know I'll hear about y'all tomorrow, because that's the only time y'all come out like freaking vampires. But you know what? I'm glad y'all talking to, because maybe just like Daryl Davis, we'll convert you too. But anyway, this has been How the Frack Got Here. How the Frack We Got Here. I'm Will Buchanan. Thank you all guys for listening. Have a great night. Peace.